Tonight's news edition. The U.S. Secretary of State begins a fresh mediation bid in the Middle East amid widespread gloom over peace prospects. At least 5 people are killed and dozens injured in a car bomb blast in southern Beirut. And violence is mounting across Iraq as government aircraft stage attacks in the troubled Anbar province. Good evening and welcome to the news. We start here at home. The Senate rejected the State Security Court law and the restructuring of government agencies legislation passed by the lower house. In a session chaired by President Abdel-Raouf al-Rawabde and attended by Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour, the Senate turned down the amended State Security Court bill after deleting a key paragraph from the document. The key controversy was the deletion of the paragraph added by the lawmakers, which excludes any act of resistance to Israeli occupation from crimes under the jurisdiction of the State Security Court. Rawabde said resistance to occupation is legitimate and guaranteed by international conventions. However, he added the paragraph on resistance to occupation should not be in the State Security Court law, but in the definition of terrorism under the anti-terrorism law. A joint session of both chambers, the second scheduled by the current parliament, will debate the contentious points on the restructuring of state institutions and departments and the fate of the Insurance Commission and the Ombudsman Bureau. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told visiting U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry that doubts about the Palestinians' commitment to peace are mounting in Israel. Kerry arrived in Israel in his latest bid to re-energize peace negotiations and find common ground between pessimistic Palestinian and Israeli officials. This report has more.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is back in the Middle East amid widespread skepticism for the success of Palestinian-Israeli peace talks. Kerry's 10th visit to the region aims to lay the foundations of a framework agreement that addresses the core issues of the conflict and open the way for an independent Palestine. Kerry hopes to narrow differences in talks that are intended to guide the sides toward a deal in April.
It would address all of the core issues. It would create the fixed, defined parameters by which the parties would then know where they are going and what the end result can be. It would address all of the core issues that we have been addressing since day one, including borders, security, refugees, Jerusalem, mutual recognition, and the end of conflict and of all claims.
But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu offered a gloomy assessment of peace prospects.
I know that you are committed to peace. I know that I'm committed to peace. But unfortunately, given the actions and words of Palestinian leaders, there's growing doubt in Israel that the Palestinians are committed to peace.
In the days before Kerry's latest trip, Palestinian leaders have likewise accused Israel of trying to sabotage the talks aimed at ending their decades-old conflict. But on the question of borders, security, refugees, and the status of Jerusalem, leaders from both sides have sounded far apart this week. Speaking after laying the foundation of new housing units at a Jewish-Israeli settlement in the Jordan Valley, Israel's Interior Minister said Israel had no intention to withdraw from the strategic Valley region.
There is a message in it, and it is clear. There is a wide consensus in the Israeli public, and you can see it by defining the MKs that come from different factions in the Knesset that supports our presence here in Jordan Valley. Not as a temporary one, but it's something that will be in any kind of settlement to the conflict.
Palestinians said anything less than a full Israeli withdrawal would be a continuation of the Israeli occupation they are negotiating to end. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas renewed a call for all Israeli settlers and soldiers within the 1967 lines to be evacuated, saying he would not hesitate to reject a bad deal. Palestinian chief negotiator Saeb Ariqat said earlier this week the U.S. brokered talks were failing and threatened to take Israel before the International Criminal Court. The Islamic Jihad organization in the Gaza Strip accused Kerry of exploiting Palestinians and said Abbas should stop negotiations altogether. A senior U.S. State Department official said Kerry was not expecting a breakthrough during his latest visit, but an eventual framework accord would act as a guideline for reaching a full peace treaty by the end of April. Hala Debabne for the News at 10.
A car bomb explosion in southern Beirut, a stronghold of Hezbollah group, has left at least 5 people dead and dozens injured. The bomb attack struck just after 4 p.m. when the streets of Harat Hareik district were packed with rush hour traffic. Hezbollah members fired into the air to disperse people, fearing possible subsequent explosions. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the explosion, which was condemned by both sides of Lebanon's sectarian divide. It was the latest in a series of bomb attacks that struck the Lebanese capital in recent months, including a car bomb in central Beirut last week, which killed Mohammed Shatah, a former finance minister and vocal critic of Hezbollah, along with 6 other people. The conflict in neighboring Syria has polarized Lebanon and stoked sectarian tensions. Over to Iraq, where a suicide car bomber killed at least 12 people who had gathered to buy and sell cars in the country. No group immediately claimed responsibility for the attack, which took place near the car markets in the town of Balad Ruz in northeastern Iraq, injuring another 25 people. The attack came as Iraqi government jets carried out airstrikes targeting militants in Anbar. Tribal gunmen yesterday stormed police stations in several cities in Iraq's western province, seizing weapons caches and freeing prisoners. Iraq's defense ministry handed out a crowd video, which it said showed gunmen suspected of belonging to the Islamic State of Iraq in the cities of Ramadi and Fallujah being targeted by airstrikes. The latest flare-up in violence came after Iraqi security forces dismantled a camp in Anbar, inflaming anger at the government amid the country's sectarian tensions. In Egypt, 7 people, including the son of a Muslim Brotherhood leader, have been arrested in connection with a suicide bomb attack on a police station north of Cairo that killed 16 people last month. The government listed the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization after accusing it of carrying out the attack. The Brotherhood denies any link to violence. A Sinai-based militant group, Ansar Bayt al-Maqdis, claimed responsibility for the December 24th attack in Mansoura. Interior Minister Muhammad Ibrahim also accused the Muslim Brotherhood of opening up lines of communication with the Islamist group Hamas in neighboring Gaza and receiving military training from them. Meanwhile, former President Mohamed Morsi will face trial on January 28th over a mass jailbreak in 2011, one of 3 cases against him. South Sudan's army advanced towards the rebel-controlled town of Bor. The advance came as the government and rebels gathered in Ethiopia for peace talks to end violence that has pushed the world's newest country towards civil war. Both sides have agreed in principle to a ceasefire, but neither has indicated when the fighting will stop. South Sudanese President Salva Kiir declared a state of emergency in Unity State and Jonglei, whose capital Bor fell yesterday into the hands of militia loyal to former Vice President Riek Machar. International pressure for a deal is mounting. Neighboring countries mediating between the 2 warring sides have warned that continued fighting could derail the peace talks.
Advancing to Bor, of course, these people, they want to come to Juba. We have some fight, and our forces are moving toward Bor. So anytime we will be in Bor. Anytime, of course, as we don't have yet a ceasefire, and we don't want them to come and get us somewhere here, so we have to go to them. And in Bantu area, Unity State, we seized Mayom yesterday morning.
Czech police said they found weapons at the Palestinian mission in Prague a day after a safe exploded there, killing Ambassador Jamal al-Jamal. A spokeswoman confirmed the report on the discovery of weapons, but she gave no details about their type or quantity. Czech police have ruled out a terrorist attack and said the likely cause was that a safe device or a safety device that was part of the safe blew up and fatally wounded the envoy. However, embassy spokesman Nabil Al-Fahel said embassy staff were not aware of any explosive device connected to the safe, adding further confusion to the already murky incident. Islamist militants in Somalia claimed responsibility for the triple bombing on a Mogadishu hotel that killed at least 11 people. Al-Shabaab said its bombers had targeted intelligence officials who were meeting at the Jazeera hotel at the time. Al-Shabaab, who are battling African peacekeepers for control of territory in southern and central Somalia, said it had killed more than a dozen people in yesterday's attack. A private ambulance service director said his medics had recovered at least 11 bodies. The assault on the Jazeera Hotel, one of the securest places on coastal capital, underscored worries in neighboring countries, and beyond that, Somalia could slip back into anarchy if recent military gains against rebels are not consolidated. Former Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, who has been in a deep coma since a 2006 stroke, is now in a life-threatening condition and is unlikely to rally. In the first official medical statement on Sharon's condition after reports that he suffered a kidney malfunction, a hospital official said doctors expected a deterioration in several life-sustaining organs. Back here at home, a footbridge on an East Amman street partially collapsed, damaging 3 cars, but there were no reports of serious injuries. The Civil Defense Department said its crews rushed to the scene in the district of Al-Mahatta, where the pedestrian bridge was struck by a truck loaded with a bulldozer. 1 person was treated for minor injuries in the collapse of the overpass that forced the closure of the main street leading to the city of Zarqa. Amman municipal crews removed the debris from the street located in front of the traffic department headquarters. Authorities said traffic on the main route will be back to normal tonight after the necessary repairs. "52 passengers on board a research ship that had been trapped in Antarctica ice for 9 days have been rescued. The expedition's leader confirmed the rescue was successful and said the passengers were evacuated safely by helicopter. The helicopter from the Chinese icebreaker Snow Dragon ferried the passengers in small groups several times from the icebound ship. They were transferred to an Australian Antarctic supply ship. The Russian ship left New Zealand in late November on a private expedition. It became trapped on December 24th, about 1,500 nautical miles south of Australia's southern island state of Tasmania. Chris Turney, who led the private expedition, said conditions at sea had improved enough to mount the rescue mission following days of blizzard, fog and shifting sea ice. We start from Michigan, where the Michigan Hockey Stadium witnessed a new record of over 105,000 spectators to watch the Winter Classic between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Detroit Red Wings. The huge crowds braved brutal Arctic conditions to fill the massive stadium in Ann Arbor and were left on the edge of their frozen seats until the Leafs' Tyler Bozak scored the decisive shootout goal in the fading light and blowing snow. If confirmed, the crowd would be the biggest ever for a hockey game. Over to tennis and the Hopman Cup in Perth. Australians didn't make it to the final after the Polish pair of Grzegorz Panfil and Agnieszka Radwanska beat Bernard Tomic and Samantha Stacer 2-1 to go through to the Hopman Cup final. Tomich drew first blood for the Australians with a 6-1, 6-4 win over Panfil before world number 5 Radvanska levelled the tie with a hard-fought 3-6, 6-4, 6-3 victory over Stasa. The Polish pair needed to win a set from the mixed doubles to prevent Canada reaching Saturday's final, and they did so, taking the second set 7-5 on their way to a 1-6, 7-5, 10-8 victory. Finally, a look at the weather forecast. Cold and partly cloudy tonight with easterly light to fresh winds. Frost is expected across the hilly areas and the Badia Desert region after midnight into the early morning hours. Tomorrow, cool conditions will continue with temperatures ranging between the highs of 11 to 15 degrees Celsius across the desert region and the hilly areas. Winds will be southeasterly light, picking up at times. Warmer weather is expected in the Jordan Valley and Aqaba, where temperatures will slightly exceed 20 degrees Celsius. Aqaba should expect northerly brisk winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. Now, a reminder of the day's top stories. The U.S. Secretary of State begins a fresh mediation bid in the Middle East amid widespread gloom over peace prospects. At least 5 people are killed and dozens injured in a car bomb blast in southern Beirut. And violence is mounting across Iraq as government aircraft stage attacks in the troubled Anbar province. And that's the end of tonight's news. I'm Rad Liptush. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.